Hey, welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at our 7 major open chords, how to read them, how to write them, and most importantly, how to play them. As always, make sure to click that subscribe button at the bottom. And without further ado,
hey, welcome back. I'm Marty with JamFast. Today we're going to be going over all your basic open chords, A through G. And we'll also be jumping into some guitar tablature so that you know how to read and also notate your own chords on our blank chord diagrams. Okay, so our first chord we're going to be learning today is our open A chord. A lot of people when playing this chord will use their first, second, and third fingers. Personally, I've found it's easier to play the chord and easier to transition to other chords if you use your second, third, and fourth fingers on this chord. So we're going to begin our A using our second finger, our middle finger. It's going to come on the second fret of the fourth string. Our third finger, our ring finger, is going to come directly below it, also on the second fret of the third string. And finally, our pinky is going to come just below that, also on the second fret of the second string. We do not play the sixth string, the thickest string, on this chord. So we only play 1 through 5. So first, I'd like you to play every note successively to make sure that you hear the note clearly with no buzzing, such as this. And then strum. All right, now I want to show you what that looks like in guitar tablature form and how to write that in yourself on your guitar guide. You'll see the first chord is A. At the top, we got this thick black line. If you remember, we wrote in the terminology, this is called our nut. This is going to be the first, second, third, fourth fret as labeled here. So the A chord is written, again, if you remember, we take our second, third, and fourth finger, just as labeled here, on the second fret. These O's mean you play these strings openly, and the X means that you do not play that string. So when you go to write it in on your guitar guide, you're going to do as follows. So again, this is the nut. So we're going to put a circle here, 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 and then we'll see if I could do this. Put a 2, 3, and a 4. And then remember to label above the nut. This means we play these 2 strings open, and we do not play that string. All right, the next chord we will be learning is in alphabetical order, so we'll go to the B chord. This is one of 2 of the most difficult open chords to play because it requires what we haven't learned yet called bar chords. That is where we take our one finger, our index finger, and it actually becomes this white nut as a capo clamping down on the entire fret. Okay, so for a B chord, we are going to take our number 1 finger and it's actually going to clamp down on the second fret. How I accomplish that is I actually push the back of the guitar with my thumb, and then I take sometimes my middle finger, the second finger, and clamp down on top of that other finger in order to create a capo. Then we're going to take our third finger, our ring finger, and it's going to stretch all the way up to the 4th fret of the 4th, 3rd, and 2nd string. You're going to be laying it just like that. If you do hear buzzing, don't move your fingers immediately. Look down to actually see what the issue is. A lot of the time it just has to do with finger placement, or if you're coming directly down on the string, make the adjustment and then make sure you can hit that note clearly before moving forward. We're going to look at the B chord in guitar tablature form and how to write that in. If you recall, this is one of the 2 more difficult open chords to play because it requires this capo or bar from our first finger. When looking at the guitar tab, sometimes they show a bar written out as such with just their number 1 or your index finger written inside. in my tutorial, I do recommend just using your third finger, your ring finger, pushing down on all these, really focusing on the second, third, fourth, and fifth strings. And then again, the X up here means that we do not play the sixth string in this chord. So again, jumping over to here, on your guitar guide, you're going to be putting a B up top, and then just following that same chart. This is saying that we're barring the second fret, and then I am also going to circle these three strings and put my third finger there. We also do not play the sixth string. All right, moving on, we'll be learning next the open C chord. This will be using our 1, 2, and 3 fingers. So first we'll be using our 1 finger, the index finger, and we'll come up to the first fret of the second string. Our second finger, the middle finger, will come up on the second fret of the fourth string. And lastly, your ring finger, third finger, will come on the third fret of the fifth string. We will not be playing the sixth string, the lowest and thickest string, for the C chord. So again, play these notes one at a time and then strum afterwards, such as this. So again, we pull up that basic chord chart. I'm looking at the third chord here. This is going to show we're using our first, second, and third finger. First finger being on that second string of the first fret. Second finger on the second fret, fourth string. Third finger is going to be on the fifth string of that third fret. And again, keep an eye out up here. This means we do not play the sixth string, and the first and third string is open. So heading over to our guitar guide, you're going to write a C up top. The strings that we are pushing down is this with our 1 finger, that with our 2 finger, and this with our 3 finger. We do not play the sixth string in a C. However, we do play the first and the third string open. All right, we'll now be moving on to the D open chord. This will also be using our 1, 2, and 3 fingers. We're going to first be bringing our 1 finger, the index finger, down on the second fret of the third string. Now your middle finger, the 2 finger, is going to come also down on the second fret, but on the first string. And your third finger, your ring finger, will come down on the third fret of the second string. We do not play the sixth and fifth, the 2 lowest and thickest strings on the D chord, only the first through fourth. So again, going through them successively sounds like this. I jump back here to the basic chord chart. If you recall, we use our first, second, and third fingers drawn as such. We only play the fourth string open, and the fifth and sixth string is not played in the D chord. So coming back over to our guitar guide, you're going to come and write D up on the top. We're going to first circle the strings that are suppressed right in the finger numbers. Actually, I had to look at my fingers to remember that really quick. This string we play open, and these strings are not played in the key of D. All right, the next chord is going to be our E open chord, again using the 1, 2, and 3 fingers. So we'll begin by taking our 1 finger, the index finger, and it's going to come on the first fret of the third string. Your 2 finger, middle finger, is going to come down on the second fret of the fifth string. And lastly, your third finger, ring finger, is going to come right below it, also on the second fret of the fourth string. In the chord E, we do play all 6 strings. So successively, that sounds like this. Next on the list, we're going to move on to our E major chord. This is going to say we're using our first finger on the first fret of the third string, second finger, second fret of the fifth string, and our third finger on the second fret of the fourth string. The first, second, and sixth string are all played openly. So jumping back to our guitar guide, you're going to write something a little bit like this. We're going to first circle the strings that are suppressed when playing this chord. Going to write our finger numbers in. And then finally, we are going to circle the strings that are played openly on the E chord, which is the first, second, and sixth. All right, the next chord we'll be covering is the second most difficult basic chord that we'll learn today. This is the F chord. Again, we're going to be using our one finger, the index finger, almost as a capo, clamping down on the first fret. Again, I use my thumb to pinch the guitar neck. Your second finger, your middle finger, is going to come down on the second fret of the third string. Your ring finger, the third finger, will come down on the third fret of the fifth string. And your pinky finger, fourth finger, is going to come down just below it, also on the third fret of the fourth string. So your one finger will ultimately be hitting the sixth string, first fret, and the first and second string of the first fret. So ultimately, playing these strings successively will sound like this. This is difficult to do. I do recommend keeping your index finger up high. So I'm actually pushing that sixth string with the middle of my digit right here. And I'm pushing the first and second string with this part between the knuckles right here of this finger. It helps get a little bit better leverage by bringing your index finger up the guitar neck. So jumping back to our basic chord chart, coming down, this is the F chord. There are one finger that's barring the first fret, but that is what's happening here, and this is just another way to illustrate that. Our second finger is here on the second fret of the third string. Our third finger is up here on the third fret of the fifth string, and our fourth finger on the fourth string of that third fret as well. So to jump back over to our guitar guide, I'm going to put an F up here. I'm going to stick with that same pattern that we were using above for the B. I'm going to put in a 1 for our one finger. And then you might notice this has a very similar pattern to that of the E. It just happens to be up one fret. If you see here, we got this pattern. It's the same pattern right here. We're going to be using our 2, 3, and 4 fingers. And that's how you're going to write in the F chord. The last chord in this video we will be covering today is the G chord. There are a few different variations on how to play the G chord, but today I'll be covering the simplest version and the version that I prefer. So to begin with, you're going to be taking your fourth finger, your pinky finger, and you're going to come down on the third fret of the first string. Now your ring finger, your third finger, is going to come just above it, also on the third fret of the second string. The third and fourth string are played openly on this chord. Your number one finger, the index finger, is going to come down on the second fret of the fifth string. And lastly, your middle finger, your second finger, will come down on the third fret of the sixth string. So playing those successively will sound like this. Now, if that's a little tough to play, a slightly easier version of this chord will be only using your middle finger on the third fret of the sixth string, and either your fourth or third finger, your pinky or ring finger, on the third fret of the first string. So that will sound like this. So we're going to jump back to the basic chord chart. We're going to be looking at this last chord down here, the G. You might right off the bat notice this is yet a third different rendition of the G chord, but I wanted to show you all three different ways that you can play this open G. So in this version, they're using the one finger on the second fret of the fifth string, your second finger up here on the third fret of the sixth string, your thickest string, and their third finger, the ring finger they're using for that third fret of the first string. I personally like my basic open G to also include this string as well. So if we want to write that in how we were playing it earlier, jumping back to our guitar guide, you're going to be writing G right up at the top here. And then first I'm going to be circling in all of the strings that are suppressed in that G that we are playing earlier. And then this is going to be our one finger, our two finger, three finger, and fourth finger. And lastly, we do play, this is actually our G note, so we're definitely playing that one open. And we are also including this string open in the G chord as well.